This one is one of the easier syllabus points in the course. It is the benefits and challenges to Australian-owned businesses as a result of free trade agreements. So we know from the last point that free trade agreements have a variety of features, but in general, the role is to remove barriers to trade in goods, services and investment, as more trade generally leads to business expansion, more jobs, better for the society. So the benefits is that with a reduction in barriers to trade, there is an expanded market for Australian goods overseas at a competitive price point. So we know that our labour costs here are very high. So to enable successful expansion, we can't deal with often tariffs imposed on top of what are already expensive goods made by Australian business. So with this expanded market, generally it's going to lead to hopefully an increased customer base, greater revenues and expanded market share in overseas markets. Another benefit is that if in our production in Australia, we import goods which are needed for that production, those will become cheaper, therefore reducing our costs of production. Lastly, investment is a really important part or a really important benefit. And with reduction in barriers to investment, it encourages overseas investment in Australian business, which can lead to expansion, but also it makes it easier for us as Australian businesses to invest overseas, and that money comes back to Australia as those businesses grow. Challenges. So the greatest challenge by far is the increased competition, which comes from overseas at a price point generally which is probably going to be lower. So if we, our domestic businesses, cannot compete, then by lowering our own internal costs of production, then those businesses in that market are going to lose market share. They're going to lose revenue and profits, and potentially that business could go broke, laying off workers, which has significant flow-on effects for the economy as a whole. Lastly, another challenge is that sometimes it's difficult for small to medium-sized businesses to engage in the benefits of free trade because it may be very complex, and also that even though there is a reduction in tariffs, entering new markets overseas may come with other associated costs which are simply just beyond the scope of small to medium-sized businesses. So I think this one is pretty easy to get your head around. So rather than having practice questions, it's good sometimes to stop and pause and check your understanding. So let's do a quiz. So I'm going to read out the question. You'll see it on the screen. I would like you to get a piece of paper or something to type or write with, and then we'll do the quiz and we can go through it at the end, and you can mark your own work. So pause the video if you want to get yourself sorted, and then we'll make a start. Okay, here we go. Question 1. As you can see, pause after each question to write your answer, and then we'll come through at the end and we'll mark it. So question 1, define globalization. Question 2, describe. Is fine. So write a sentence about how loss minimization drives global business development. Question 3, again, write a sentence describing how consumer purchasing and spending patterns drive global business development. Write a sentence describing, that's enough just to describe the role of the World Trade Organization. Again, just a sentence defining the concept of financial deregulation or deregulation of financial markets. Another one, so just a sentence describing one way skills and technology have been impacted by globalization. Apologies for the spelling of globalization. Next one, again, one way international cooperation has been impacted by globalization. Define the concept of a tax haven. You can include an example in your answer. Number 9 is define the concept of transfer pricing. Write a sentence defining the concept of transfer pricing. And the last one, 2-mark question, state 2 features of the ASEAN Australia New Zealand Free Trade Agreement. So pause the video, take a minute to go over and just check your answers, and then I'll run through potential correct responses. Okay, so just the purpose of this quiz is to keep the content in the front of your brain. So we know from psychology that you continually have to reinforce the knowledge in your brain, otherwise the pathway that you have created by learning it disappears. So giving yourself a quick quiz every now and then, or there'll be quizzes through all of the GlowBiz videos at moments throughout, helps you maintain that information in the front of your brain. So when it comes time for the semester 1 and semester 2 exams, you don't have to relearn it. It is already there. So globalization is the integration into dependence of the world's economies through thanks to improvements of communication and transport, and it is in the fields of trade, it is in the fields of culture, society. Basically, the world is a smaller place. Question number 2, loss minimization drives global business development by reducing costs of production for business. This has been done through moving production offshore to take advantage of lower labor costs. It's also been done by spreading risks around the world, meaning that if there is an economic downturn in one place, if you're a global business, then those losses potentially could be minimized because you're operating in a variety of markets. Consumer purchasing and spending patterns have driven global business development by allowing businesses to find consumer trends or to understand aspects of consumer behavior, and therefore find production opportunities by exploiting a gap or a niche market for new products. The World Trade Organization, its overall role is to make trade flow as smoothly, freely, and predictably as possible, therefore increasing the overall volume of trade around the world, benefiting countries and businesses involved. Financial deregulation is the removal of barriers to the operation of financial markets, the removal of legislative barriers or laws related to the operation of financial markets, which can involve banks, investment, or other financial intermediaries. Skills and technology have been impacted by globalization in that skills and technology have now spread globally, improving or increasing the skills in particular of people in developing countries who have been upskilled and can now engage in global production. International cooperation has increased thanks to globalization. There has been an increase in the number and scope of free trade agreements, which has led to greater cooperation between countries and businesses. A tax haven is a country with secretive laws related to banking and savings in countries. A tax haven also has 0 to low taxation rates on accounts for savings and profits. Examples of tax havens include the Cayman Islands, the Bahamas, or those potentially may have 0 taxation on profits. Singapore has a reduced corporate tax rate to encourage investment in Singapore. Transfer pricing is the way that businesses can move profits to areas of low taxation to reduce their overall taxation burden. They often do this through manipulating prices on elements that they own by selling them to subsidiaries in tax havens, again, to shift the profits from a high tax country to one with lower taxation. Two features of the ASEAN Australia-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement. You could have had a 90% reduction in tariffs on goods traded within the region, making Australian goods competitive. You could have had a liberalisation of trade in services, again, encouraging Australian businesses to engage with service providers throughout the ASEAN region. You could have had simplified customs procedures and improved rules of origin stipulations, again, to enable Australian goods to leave Australia and get to customers quicker, faster, more efficiently, keeping customers happy and reducing overall costs. Good little quiz. I hope it helped. Thanks.